Hi, Mr. Sim and Mr. Nicholas. My name is Aekkraj, and this is my reflective video on a summary of what I've learned in the past 4 weeks. So in this video, I'll be addressing the 5 topics that are required by the reflective video. But before I head on to that, I would like to address my current understanding of programming. Last semester, I covered Python, and so this semester has basically been me translating everything that I knew about Python programming into a way that Ruby would understand it, like the syntax. For example, I would always use print in Python, but now I would have to use puts. And instead of int bracket input, I realized that in Ruby we would use something like to underscore I. So it was basic things like this that I had to learn from scratch so that I could understand Ruby better. So we'll be looking at the first topic, which is standard input and output. And we'll be dealing with 3 main things, which is integers, floats, and strings, all of which have their own way of calling each type of output and input. And to remove white spaces, this one object, which I don't understand why, but to remove white spaces, we use chomp. And one thing I realized is that in programming, quotation marks are very sensitive because the moment you put, let's just look at a sample code here. So you would think 5 times 5. So this is a variable which actually links to the next topic. But yeah, 5 times 5, you would think it would be 25. But because there is a quotation mark, which indicates that it is a string, it would print out this 5 times. So this is a good conclusion that quotations are very important. And for output in Ruby, you would use puts, and to get an input, you would use gets. Very brief look at variables, and to me, that's basically giving a value to an object. And this is an example of it. So best student is the variable in this case. And let's assign a value. Let's say it would be Aekkraj. And so the question would say, puts who's the best student, and it would call best student. So instead of printing the word best student, it's going to print out Aekkraj. And you should also take note that it's very case sensitive. So if this was a small b, then you would have to put a small b here as well. Because if not, it won't call because it's case sensitive. Now we'll be looking at selections, and I would like to use in-flight entertainment as an example. As complex of a program it is, if you look at it hard enough, it's just basically one big if statement, which is basically yes or no, which is also on, off, which can be looked at 1, 0, or how a computer would look at it as. Now, an example of this would be, let's assign a variable and a value. So if the video result was HD, then it would print Aekkraj is happy. If the video result had any other value, Aekkraj would be sad. That's what it would print out. And there's an extension of this as well called else if. So let's say the video result was D. And so the first statement, if video result is HD, which is not, it won't call. And it'll go to the next else if statement, which is if video result is D, Aekkraj would still be happy. So this would be the one it would call. So now I'll be talking about loops, and there are 2 types of loops to take note of in Ruby. So there's pre-test, which means the condition is tested first before executing the loop's body. And then there's post-test, where only after each iteration, then the condition is tested. And within this, there are 2 extra loops called while and for. And this would be an example of it. So let's say we have a variable called Aekkraj grade, and it's 50. So right now it's 50, and the loop would add 1 to the current value. So as long as Aekkraj grade is less than 100, it will just keep looping until Aekkraj grade becomes 100, and then it would break with the final value being 100 as well. Last but not least, we have functions, and functions basically perform a very specific task. So in this example, we have our main function and we have another function. And the task of this function is basically to get a number from the user and square it and return the new value. So we would go straight into the squaring function. So In this, we would first state def, which is to show it's a function, followed by the function name. Then we would use x as a kind of like an example to show where the number would go, and then it would do the whole mathematical like calculations, and finally you can put return x to let the function know to return the value at the end. And then in the main function, you would get the user to give their number. So let's say it's 4, and then in this case, square would be 4. So 4 would be replaced by x, and it will go through all of this. So 4 to the power of 2 would be 16, and puts result 2s returns 16 as a string.